Chica. So we're here at episode 11 on HCG Diet Interviews, and I actually have Lisa with me today. She's actually lost 111 pounds with the HCG protocol, and there's a couple reasons I wanted to interview her. One is that she's been really responsible throughout her life with her eating, but it didn't allow her to lose weight. So I wanted, for any of you out there who've been in a similar boat, she has a great story. She also is very responsible about how she did the protocol, and we'll also talk about how she's been healing her metabolism after the fact. There are a lot of women who do the HCG protocol that find that they can never go into phase 4. Some of you feel like you have to stay in phase 3 perpetually. So we're going to talk about an issues she had with that and how she's actually fixing that so that she can have some starches and and things like that again. So okay. Welcome, Lisa. Nice to have you today.
Thanks. It's nice to be here today.
I wanted to ask you real quick before we get started. Tell us, you have a website and what you have on there.
My website is livearadiantlife.com, and I just basically do what you're doing, but on a way smaller scale. I don't have all the videos and everything like you have, but I just want to educate people. I think because HCG is so controversial, and people have just a lot of people have the wrong idea about it. So I like to just educate people on the protocol and show them I've lost 111 pounds. It works.
Right.
And I have just different articles on there. Everything you can think of from phase 2 questions. I have recipes for phase 2. I have recipes for all the different phases, and just a lot of questions and answer type things.
Awesome, wonderful. So that's Live a Radiant Life, and there will be a link to that in the show notes, the article, if you wanna find that. So why don't we start out with just kind of like the basic stats, like how your size changed from start to finish? What weight did you start at? Stuff like that.
I started at 263 pounds, and now I'm about 151. My size was a 24 when I started, and now I mostly 8'10". So big change.
Yeah. And you said you're 5'7", right?
Yeah, I'm 5'7".
Yeah, so that's a huge change. And you ended up doing a total of 5 rounds with RX sublingual HCG, right?
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. I used every time I bought hCG was the brand that I bought, and I did sublingual every round. I have tried so many diets in the past, and I thought if I tell my husband that I'm going to do this thing where I give myself shots, he would think I for sure went over the deep end. And so I thought sublingual is a little better.
And it obviously worked out fine. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yep.
That's good. So why don't we talk a little bit about your past before we get into everything with HCG? You mentioned that you've dealt with some health things and difficulty losing weight, and tell us all about that.
I was diagnosed about 20 years ago when my son was just a baby with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Okay. And before that, I really didn't have weight problems. When I had my kids, with my daughter, I gained some weight, and then after I had my son, I gained. But it just, once the thyroid got out of whack, I just started uncontrollably gaining. And then I also had adrenal fatigue, which kind of goes hand in hand with the thyroid problems. A lot of people who have thyroid problems also have adrenal fatigue. So, and with adrenal fatigue, a lot of times you just can't lose. Your body just won't let go of the weight. So between those two things, everything I tried, I couldn't lose. Things that other people would do and would say they lost a bunch of weight didn't work for me. So,
in fact, I remember you mentioning when we initially talked that like you tried so many diets, and that you would always you would lose weight the first week, which everyone does because they lose water weight, and then it would just always stop. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, that's what always happened. The first week I might lose 5 to 7, 8, somewhere in there pounds, but then it would just stop after that. And then I could go on for I think I did Atkins for 6 months and lost nothing.
Wow, that's crazy. So it's really your metabolism and just with your thyroid and the adrenals just totally messed up.
Yeah, it was just really messed up. Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Hashimoto's is actually an autoimmune disease where your body attacks your thyroid and gradually destroys it. I actually have
Yeah.
I've had the same thing. And there's really, really good information online about thyroid and adrenal stuff like that at stopthethyroidmadness.com. I highly recommend it. I mean, she knows all about that, and it's so much good information. A lot of women don't know they have a thyroid issue because they'll take tests and it will come back normal. And so they'll be like, oh, I guess my thyroid's fine. But actually, if you read on her site, a lot of normal lab tests, that does not mean that, so if you have similar issues as Lisa has had, you might want to just do a little more research, online. So, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And that's actually where I went, was Stop the Thyroid Madness, to kind of educate myself.
Yeah.
And through that, I ended up going on a natural thyroid medication, and it still didn't help me to lose weight, but I felt 100% better than I've had in like 20 years. So
amazing. And do you still
that's
do that
a great
today?
site.
Yeah. Do you still take the natural thyroid today? Cool.
Yeah, I still do. And I was surprised because I thought maybe the weight loss might affect my dose, that, I might be on a lower dose, but it hasn't changed at all. I just had my blood work done about a month ago, and I'm still on the same dose. But
and you feel good, right? So that's how you know it's a good dose.
Yeah, I feel really good.
That's good.
And I'm not gaining. Before, whenever my dose would get off, I would have gains, and so.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, well, that's good. It's a really good thing for people, to check out. So tell us now just a quick little breakdown. How much, you lost a lot of weight. How much did you lose each individual round?
On round 1, I lost 26 pounds. And on round 2, 24 pounds. Round 3, I lost 25.6. Round 4, I lost 21.2. And round 5, I lost 21.
Awesome.
So 117.8 pounds was my total. I actually, that's with the gains from load days and everything. And you know how with HCG we fluctuate. We have the window that we stay in. So most of the time I tell people I've lost 111 pounds because I go by my beginning weight and my weight now. But if you add up each round how much I lost, it's more than that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I know how that goes. Yeah. So if you guys will notice, her average weight loss, because you did long rounds of about 40 days, right? Her average weight loss is about a ½ pound a day average. And most likely, everyone's weight loss is different, but in general, most people lose more the first 10 days or first couple weeks. And then the last few weeks, it drops off quite a bit. And so overall, your average, like the first couple of weeks, it may be a pound a day, or more. And then the last few weeks, it might be 0.2 average, and then it averages out to ½ pound. So I just want to mention that because, so many people get discouraged that they're not seeing the weight loss they feel they should see. But this really is the average for most women is about a ½ pound. So, be happy with that. And then see with Lisa, just don't worry about it. Just be happy with what you get, and then you get to your goal. So, in fact, when did you finish your last round?
I finished my last round December 3rd.
Cool. Yeah, so it's already a few months ago.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about loading for HCG because you've actually done it both ways. You've done the kind of higher sugar or just like, oh, woohoo, eat whatever we want. You've done it that way, which is fine. And then you've done it the clean, low carb way that I've talked about on my site. Tell me your experience. What were the differences as far as the results of doing those two different ways?
Well, my first round, because I really did have healthy eating before HCG. I mostly eat whole foods. I don't eat processed stuff. I hardly ever ate any like sugar, any kind of treats. So my first round, I kind of was just like, oh my, I haven't had any of this stuff for a long time. So I loaded. I had a Snickers ice cream bar, and I had other things that I normally hadn't had in forever, but I gained more weight on my load days then. So after that, I got that out of my system. And when I realized how much weight I was losing with the HCG, then my next rounds, I loaded a lot smarter. I tried to have mostly good proteins and good fats, and vegetables and that kind of thing too. But I didn't load I kept it pretty low carb. So that I wouldn't gain and have to re-lose that.
Yeah, right. What difference was there in the loading gains, would you say?
On round 2, I only gained 0.6.
Okay.
And on round 1, when I was eating everything, I gained 2 pounds.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's still pretty low. I mean, 2 pounds
yeah,
is
it
not,
wasn't,
yeah,
yeah,
still not too bad, but still. So for that, so that changed that, and you still lost about the same amount of weight your other round, so it didn't affect.
yeah,
Actually,
didn't
you
affect,
technically had higher net losses actually because you didn't have as much loading weight to lose, you know. So
right,
that's
yeah.
cool. And aside from that, was there any change in how you felt like the first week? If not, that's fine. But as far as after loading, did you feel any different
Well,
on VLCD?
I think on the rounds that I tried to stick with more healthy fats and more protein, I didn't get as hungry as
Okay.
soon. Because for me, I usually my first week I was okay until about day 7 or day 8, and I was
Okay.
usually pretty hungry
Gotcha.
by day 7 or day 8, and then that would pass.
Okay.
But on the other rounds where I loaded better, more clean,
Yeah.
I didn't get the hunger like I did on that first round.
Gotcha.
So
Cool. I think that's an important thing to note because the protocol is so hard, and anytime you have to deal with that hunger stuff, it's just so much worse, you know? So it's like if you can
yeah.
avoid it, it's something to think about, you know? So actually, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, because I wanted to address this too, because I kind of have a different background where like I got overweight because I binged on sugar stuff and I was addicted to sugar, and whereas you're different. You were pretty responsible eating throughout life, and it just, you know, how did that, you know, just tell me a little bit about that, maybe.
Um, I think that really my gains were just because of my thyroid. And because at first I was on Synthroid, which some people can take Synthroid and they're fine and they can get the weight off once they start taking it. But for me, once my thyroid once it quit working, I just couldn't lose. So I tried lots of different diets. I ate healthy. I didn't really like eat much sugar,
Yeah. So you
but
ate fairly like in a balanced way, and you just still, it just, you'd gain
yeah,
weight or not lose it, or
yeah.
yeah.
And when I was on the Synthroid, it fluctuated. The dose that I needed fluctuated a lot more. Now that I've been on the natural, my dose stays the same. I've been on the same dose for probably 2 years. But
Okay.
before that, it would fluctuate. And so every time my dose would get off, I would gain weight.
Oh,
Maybe
gotcha.
5 pounds here
And then you
or,
can't get it
5 pounds
off.
there.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, so I just thought that was kind of interesting for people to hear, you know, because you're not crazy. You know, like sometimes people make you feel
Yeah.
like you're crazy, like, well, you must be doing something wrong because
Yeah.
you should be able to lose weight doing this or whatever.
Right.
You're like, I'm really doing what I'm supposed to do, and it's just not working, you know, so you're not crazy. So
Yeah.
for other people
And
to
I had doctors that treated me like that,
really,
that they didn't believe me.
yeah.
And they just were like, you just need to get off the couch and I exercise. That's the other thing.
Okay.
I have always exercised, and I told you, Razel, earlier that I'm in the process of getting certified to teach something called praise moves. So
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually a fit fat person
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah.
but I've had doctors just act like, well, you just must be lying about something
That's
because you
right.
should be able to lose.
I know. I just think that's awful because there's just too many people who've related the same story for it to
Yeah,
be fake. Like, you know, there's not that many people lying about things that are normal,
right.
upstanding
Yeah.
people. Well, why don't we go ahead and talk now about phase 2, with the actual process of losing weight for you. I wanted to know if you could share some of the main things, the keys to like things that you found that you needed to do in order to be successful on a round, and also things that you found like hurt your losses or made it not work well. What about that?
For me, I guess I had certain foods that even though they were allowed on the protocol, I couldn't eat them without having gain.
Okay.
So I had to avoid cabbage, cooked
Okay.
cabbage.
All
I
right.
couldn't eat that at all.
All right.
And then tomatoes, I couldn't eat very many tomatoes
Okay.
because those would cause me to have gain.
Okay.
I also kind of figured out which foods gave me the best losses And I really, even though it's boring, I figured it's only for a short time. So I kind of tried to stick to the ones that I knew that I got the best losses from.
Gotcha.
So like for me, that was not cabbage, cucumbers, and chicken.
Okay.
I got good losses when I would eat chicken. So
cool.
It gets kind of boring eating that same thing all the time, but it's only for 40 days, so.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Cool. So so you said you would, like, for instance, how you figured out that certain foods didn't fit well with your body, you said you'd have a gain. So like you'd be maybe losing consistently, and then all of a sudden after eating something, like, what kind of a gain, like half a pound or 0.2 or what?
Sometimes more than half a pound.
Oh, wow.
So, and then what I did was I also kept kind of a journal at first. I didn't do it on my later rounds, but at first I kept a journal of what I was eating.
Yeah.
And then that way I could go back and tell that, okay, every time I eat cabbage, I have a gain.
Interesting.
So then I knew that was something I really probably should just avoid.
Right.
And it still happens to me now. I mean, it did until recently. I started this other diet, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But even up until then, I couldn't eat cabbage, and there's different things like that would cause me to gain. So
cool. So that's smart then, to try to, maybe like you said at first, just to journal a little bit so that you get a feel for what your body tolerates more or less. Interesting. Cool. Huh, interesting. All right, let me see here. Oh yeah, so what else? So the food thing, certain foods you couldn't eat. What other things were important or hindered you?
I really water.
Yeah.
That was my main thing. I could tell on the days that I would forget my water or skip my water. I didn't completely skip it, but days that I didn't have half my body weight, I would have not as good of losses. So water was a big deal for me, making sure that I got the water in every day. And I know a lot of times people ask me, well, what about tea? Well, I drink a lot of tea, and usually decaffeinated, even herbal teas, but it's not the same. It doesn't work the same for your losses as water.
Okay, so just good plain old water.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that's good. That's good to know, because sometimes those are the types of things that we might forget about, or you kind of think like, oh, it doesn't matter, like, oh, I know I need to get my food because I'm going to be really hungry, but then we might forget about that portion. Even me, even to this day, I have to work on it. Like sometimes I go through a period of drinking more water, and then I forget, and I'm like, oh, I haven't been drinking much water lately. So yeah, that's true.
And it also helps to not feel as hungry. So when you drink that water, then if you do have a little bit of hunger, it kind of helps with that. So
right. Now, did you ever have to do any adjustment of your dose when you were on the round at all?
I never messed with it. I was part of a group. The lady that taught me about HCG, she was just diehard. Simeon's protocol, you don't change it. And so that's just how I learned, was from her and the group that she was part of. They didn't believe in changing your dose. And so I did one round. I decided to kind of mess with it a little, and I went down a little, but then I wasn't losing, so I got freaked out. So I went back to the regular dose and didn't mess with it again.
So on the sublingual, that was like a half ml or something liquid twice a day, right?
Yeah.
And that ends up being
twice a day. Yeah.
It was like 166 IUs, right?
125 is what I took.
Oh, twice a day though?
5 IUs. Yeah.
Okay.
I mixed it with 20 milliliters of the wound wash, and so then that ends up being 125 IUs twice a day.
And the reason that when you do sublingual HCG, for anyone who doesn't know, the reason you have to take more is because it doesn't absorb, not as much of it absorbs through your oral mucosa, whereas when you inject it, 100% of it's going in your body. So usually they like double the dose, sometimes even triple it, depending on hunger, to get a similar effect. So cool. Okay, good. Let's talk a little bit about, because you mentioned to me that a big part of it was, making sure you didn't cheat, really sticking to protocol. And I mean, how important is that, do you think?
I think it's important. Different people that I've helped, about 7 of their ladies now, to do the protocol, and actually kind of coach them one-on-one, where I would talk to them on the phone and different things, because I offer coaching
cool.
through my website too.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that won't stick to the protocol, that cheat, it just doesn't work for them. Right. And then they think it's the HCG, you know, they don't realize that it's like, it's because you cheated.
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah, it's true. And it is important to keep in mind because sometimes in regular life, things that would seem small, like not a big deal, on HCG, it really can affect you. I mean, it can affect your weight loss for days. And like you said, then you think, oh, maybe my HCG is not really potent, or, you know, I'm like, oh, but I did have those pretzels like a few days ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah. So you've noticed that then with the people that you've helped that
Right. I had one lady that just didn't completely stick to it, and she would have little cheats here and there. And first she didn't tell me. Yeah. And I was thinking, this is just kind of weird that she's having problems, because nobody has problems with HCG if they don't cheat. Right. And so then I realized, and she finally told me that, well, I did have.
I see. You like just kind of omitted it because she didn't think it was actually affecting her.
Yeah, she just didn't think it was a big deal. So yeah.
And actually, I'll link to an article I wrote recently about that, where just doing that consistently, little cheats, you can end up not achieving anything, and it's such a such a waste, because it's your money for the HCG, your time, and your mental, emotional energy going into that time, and you could do all of that, and then because of taking these small cheats, you won't get too far, so yeah. Let's talk about phase 3 now. You've had several of them, and also breaks. Breaks go along with that. So tell me how those phase 3 and taking breaks has gone for you.
Okay. For phase 3, I found out the best way to do phase 3 is just go very slowly. A lot of times we're so anxious to get back to eating a bigger variety of foods and more fats, that we just start eating right away, and you can't tell if you're going to be sensitive to something if you don't introduce things back in slowly. Right. And I didn't realize until about round 3 that I'm totally sensitive to dairy products. And I knew that I've kind of had a feeling for years that it was affecting my sinuses, because I would have a lot of sinus congestion and a lot of coughing and stuff in the mornings. But I didn't realize it also affected my weight. Yeah. So the first 3 rounds, I still was eating, because I love cheese. Yeah, and so I would still eat cheese. And finally, after hearing different people talking about how that they couldn't have dairy, I decided to cut it out, and I had a much easier time stabilizing. Cool. Because the dairy was what was causing me to keep having to do correction days. Interesting. So I think a big key to phase 3 is to slowly introduce new things. So like what I did, I would have just bigger amounts of our allowed foods, of our P2 allowed foods, bigger amounts, and then start just slowly adding new things the first week, add something in and see, okay, how did I do the next day? And then add something else in and see, until that's how I figured out too with the dairy, that I couldn't eat dairy. And I couldn't eat broccoli. I mean, who can't eat broccoli? Interesting. But I would have a gain from broccoli.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm not surprised. We did, I know sometimes food allergy tests aren't accurate and stuff, but my husband and I did this really comprehensive, like, newer food allergy test, right? And it's basically testing sensitivities, like inflammation as a result. And actually, broccoli was on his severe list. It was, and not for me. But he could have cauliflower. I mean, it was weird. I mean, I don't know exactly how accurate they all are, but, there's some merit, to those things, that if a food causes inflammation, it can cause weight gain. And actually, I wanted to I'm the same as you. I kind of knew I was sensitive to dairy, but I didn't know how much it affected my weight either. And I took dairy out finally, like, I think about 5 months ago now. And I just was like, wow, I can't believe how much easier it is to maintain my weight now. I mean, it was just totally unexpected. And I'm like, wow, that's, so that's very interesting. And not everyone's the same, too. I'm actually interviewing another gal later today who, she doesn't eat a lot of meat. she's not exactly vegetarian, but she doesn't eat a lot of meat, and she does eat a good amount of dairy products, and she's been maintaining great for like a year, and she's lost like 80 pounds with
Yeah,
HCG, and for her it works fine. So everyone's different, and that's why like you said, going slow and seeing for your personal body. Because just because Lisa
right,
can't do dairy doesn't mean that you can't. It's just you have to figure out for you, you know.
right.
So now, when
Yeah.
you said you gradually increased protocol foods on phase 3 at the start, does that mean that you did have some fruits in phase 3 or no? Like the
Um,
P2 fruits or no?
I really didn't eat a lot of fruits in phase 3 because my body was just still my metabolism was still pretty messed up. So
Right,
even though I was finally able to lose, the HCG, releases that fat for you,
right,
it still didn't fix my metabolism.
right.
So I did eat some low glycemic fruits, but
Okay,
I didn't eat a lot of fruits even in phase 3 just
right.
because I would end up with the gain.
Right. And
So
I kind of tend to recommend that as well, just because technically fruits are a sugar. They have quite a bit of sugar. So they're good, and usually in phase 4, if your metabolism's okay, you can handle it. But yeah, so that's cool. That was good to hear. I wasn't sure about that. Um, so let's talk about now that, since we're getting into that subject about you still had trouble though with like maintaining. You said you were having to do quite a few correction days for a while and stuff.
yeah, I still would have to do a correction day about once a week. And so really technically that's not really stabilized, if you're having to do a correction day
Right,
once a week.
right,
But I just still my metabolism was just, I mean, it was the same thing that kept me from losing for all the years.
right.
It was a real struggle for me, but I stayed on top of it, so I was able to,
Sure.
stay in my window and keep the weight off, but
Yeah,
it was very hard because
gotcha.
I had to be really strict about doing the correction day. If I had was if I was more than 2 pounds above my last dose weight, I did a correction day
Okay.
every single time.
So
So
like a steak day, is that what you mean, or
I did a
what did you do?
steak day usually. That gave me my best losses, but I had a list of other correction days, alternate correction days. So
Okay.
like I would do sometimes a Greek yogurt day where all
Okay.
you do is eat Greek yogurt all day. And I
Okay.
think if I remember right, it was like 48 ounces is how
Okay.
much you want to have for the whole day.
All right.
An egg day where you just eat nothing but eggs.
Right.
That was another one. A chicken thigh day. I did
Ooh,
that.
okay.
Sometimes you could eat chicken thighs for lunch and
Yeah.
boneless, skinless chicken thighs for lunch.
Yeah.
And then again at supper time.
Okay.
So I had a few different ones that I would try, but the steak day was probably the best, that gave me
Gotcha.
the best losses.
Sure. And with the steak day, you would not eat until dinner, right? Is usually.
Right. And
Gotcha.
then I would have the steak and an apple.
Right.
And I found with the steak day, the bigger the steak was, the better my losses.
Good point.
Except for it was kind of you wanted to keep it between like 16 ounces and 22 ounces. But if I got
Gotcha.
smaller than 16, I didn't have as good a loss
Okay, interesting.
as if I would have at least a 16-ounce steak. So,
So do you mean 16
and I
ounces
didn't,
by weight, or yeah, I guess that's by weight, 16
yeah,
ounces? I'm trying
yeah.
to think, is that like
So
really
that's,
big? That's like a pound? No.
yeah, it's like a huge steak. It's a huge
Okay,
steak.
and I'm like,
But
probably I do eat steaks that size. I don't think I've actually thought to ever like weigh it and see
yeah,
what it was. Yeah, that's cool. Well, that's a good
yeah,
point too, because sometimes people doing a steak day, they might think like, oh, 3.5 ounce steak, and I've actually had the same experience when I've done steak days. Yeah, I'm like, ooh, yeah, big ribeye, and just eat it all, and yeah, good losses. So cool. So
yeah,
that did work temporarily. That's what you've been doing. Um, to maintain your weight
right.
loss. So, but now let's get into, you said you've been recently trying a new, not necessarily a diet, but a new way of eating that's supposed to be healing. So tell us about what it's supposed to do, what it is.
Okay. It's the fast metabolism diet, and it is basically kind of a paleo way of eating, but you're changing it up all the time. Haley Pomeroy is the lady that developed this diet. I think she's a dietitian,
Okay.
and she actually has an office out in Santa Barbara, California. She works with some even movie stars and different people
Yeah.
out there, and she her theory is to confuse it to lose it.
Mm.
So a lot of people lose quite a bit of weight on the FMD is what we'll call it for short, but
yeah.
a lot of people do lose quite a bit of weight on it. But on Mondays and Tuesdays, you're eating more grains, and it's kind of higher carb day, and lower protein day, but you still get proteins, but it's lower. Then on Wednesday and Thursday, you're kind of doing high protein, no carb, and no fats either. You don't have fats on Mondays and Tuesdays, and you don't have fats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can have good fats, you know, good healthy fats like avocados, coconut oil, coconut butter, and then it's kind of moderate protein and moderate carbs on those days. So since I've been doing that, I haven't lost a bunch of weight. I have lost about, I think, 2 pounds or 3 pounds, somewhere in there. The first 3 weeks I gained. So I was getting a little nervous about whether I wanted to stick it out or not, because I really was at the point where I should have done a correction day. But with this diet, a correction day would have kind of messed the diet up and messed up what it's doing to heal your metabolism. So I waited. I stuck it out for the month, and I did a correction day at the end of the month. And then from then on, it just seemed like I slowly started losing. So my correction day took off the weight that I had gained from doing it. And then now since then, my body is slowly I'm slowly going down, and I'm eating things I haven't had in forever, like Ezekiel bread and brown rice and brown rice pasta and different things and broccoli. I can eat broccoli now.
Cool. So before you were avoiding all those starch, like you weren't eating any grain, right? If you did, like, forget it.
I basically ate P3 style for the last year and a half.
Gotcha. Wow. So that's so interesting. So if you guys want to find out more about that, it's called the fast metabolism diet, right? So, because there's quite a few women who have this issue, and I just think, like it'd be nice if there was something, you know. And you said, so you know that it's working because you said you haven't had to do correction day recently, right?
Right. I haven't done a correction day now for 3 or 4 weeks. I don't. I have to look at my calendar to know for sure, but 3 or 4 weeks. So, and that is amazing for me, because I've always had to do at least once a week, and sometimes throughout the year and a half, I've even had to do 2 correction days in 1 week. So
that's awesome.
So it really is working to heal my metabolism.
Interesting. So, but you got a little nervous at the start. So anyone else who tries this, stick it out for a little while?
Yeah, stick it out. She tells you to stick it out for at least the 28 days, because if you'd read the book, I mean, she has a book also, you can get it on Amazon or different places, but the book kind of explains it. And so there's a whole cycle that your body goes through. So she says you really need to stick it out for the 28 days. And so I was a little nervous when I was gaining, and I even sent her a message on Facebook and said, okay, I'm gaining, what should I do? And she told me, you know, avoid brown rice at first. And you know, told me the kind of grains that I should eat at first, just to help get things going for me. But it really seems like it's working now. So
and it's probably go ahead.
I'm sorry. Even if I don't really lose on it, I really was looking for something really that I could maintain, and something that might heal my metabolism, so that I could have more variety. Because you know, it's really not healthy to totally cut out all those grains and everything. The nutrients that are in them are things that it's good for your body. So I really didn't want to have to do that forever. So
yeah, actually I like that point too, because I did also recently read some research talking about, especially for women anyway, why not having any grains or carbs just for like forever can cause hormone imbalances apparently in women. And so, but then it's like that catch-22 where a woman's like, yeah, but if I eat them, I gain weight, so I'm stuck, you know. So this is very interesting, you know. Yeah, because even for me, thankfully, I do eat, you know, some grains. I'm not low carb, you know. I think my CrossFit healed my metabolism a lot. I think for me that did a lot, because I feel like I can eat fairly freely. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting. So, well, I think one of the last things I wanted to ask you was, what's the best advice that you have for someone who's, you know, just starting the protocol or for someone who has done it but struggled with it, what's your advice to them?
Um, I think one of the main things is like for me, just take it one day at a time. You know, I tried not to focus on what day am I on. Oh no, I have 20 days left. Or I tried to just not even look at that. I would still log in my weight every day, but I didn't look at what day I was on. And it made it go by way faster when I wasn't keeping track.
Gotcha.
And then be prepared mentally before you even start. It's kind of, you have to psych yourself up for this, and you have to remember too that it's a short time. 40 days is really not that long of a time if you look at it, you know, in the big picture. So just make sure that you're prepared mentally before you start, that you're really prepared that you're going to do this and you're not going to cheat and you're going to stick it out for the 40 days. And yeah, I think that's
good. Now, did you have to do any type of, you know, like sometimes people have like vacations or holidays while they're on phase two. Did you try to avoid that, or did you just go through it and stick to phase two, or what did you find worked for you?
I tried to avoid it. I would plan my rounds where I didn't have to do a round over the holidays until my last round. I did do over Thanksgiving, and it was hard. I didn't think it was going to be, but it really was hard when I had made a huge meal for my family and then and pies and everything else, and I was eating my little 250 calories. But but I tried to plan all my rounds before that so that I would avoid holidays. Like I postponed, I think it was round 3 until after Christmas. I could have done a round at the beginning of December, and I waited until after so that I wouldn't have to be dealing with it over the whole, you know, month of December.
And since you did experience it on a holiday, would you avoid it if you did it again then?
I would avoid it if I did it again.
It was that hard.
Fun.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because, you know, I have to be honest with everyone. You know, I get to communicate with a lot of people doing this diet, and consistently I see the people who try to think that, oh yeah, I can handle doing this at a difficult time like a holiday or a vacation. Those are consistently the people who end up cheating and then who end up failing, you know, that round, and it's just so discouraging, you know, for you personally. So the people who I keep interviewing are people who have done like you done, and really waited, even maybe waited longer than they wanted to because they knew it would be difficult. Same thing with the gal I'm interviewing later. She did the exact same thing. So I feel like that's an important key that we've got to take away from this, you know. Just basically, I guess, not to think we're stronger than we really are, but just like, it's, you know, it's going to affect you. It can be tough. So, yeah. And then the last thing, you did take appropriate breaks between rounds, right?
Right, I did. I took the breaks that are listed in pounds and inches. So I'm thinking between round 1 and 2, I took 6 weeks of a break, then 8 weeks, then 12, then 20. And then now if I do one more round, I only have about 10 or 15 pounds I'd still like to get off. And really, even if I didn't lose it, I'm happy where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But I would kind of like to get about 10 or 15 more off. And I'm waiting 6 months before I do another round. So
good for you. And I really hope that the fast metabolism thing like keeps working for you, and you know, maybe we can check back in and if you're here in a year, like how you're doing, you know. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it'll work and I won't have to do another round, but we'll see.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, if I haven't lost the weight by June, then I'm gonna do one last round.
Oh, that's exciting. Aw. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today. And remember,
you're welcome.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say thank you for taking the time, and I so appreciate you and your site, and that was something I didn't mention. I was going to mention, but all throughout my rounds, you know, I would get on your site and just look at other people's success stories, and really it does help to keep you motivated to keep going, because you can do it. You know, you really can. If you just stick with it and don't cheat, and you really can do it. So
yeah, but you're right. Sometimes we need that extra, like, something to keep us going because it gets old. A little bit of, you know, recharge to keep you going. Good. Well, again, if you guys want to find her online, it's livearadiantlife.com. Like I said, there will be a link in there, and she does do coaching and stuff too. So you can is that okay? They can contact you if they're interested
that's fine. Yep,
coaching.
they can contact me at lisa@liveradiantlife.com. And one other thing I was going to mention that I didn't is I actually wrote an ebook too that's kind of a lot of the things we talked about today. And just I also have some charts in there, calorie charts, and one thing that we didn't talk about today that I probably should have mentioned was like sometimes people when they have fast weight loss, they have hair loss. And
Yes.
so I have some stuff in there that you can use that you can buy from like health food stores that helps with hair loss and different things. It's pretty much all the things that I've learned over the 5 rounds that I would share with people to help them have a more successful rounds. So I have that on my site too.
Great. And that's really nice too, because an ebook format can be so great to just to have as a reference, you know. So that would be
Right.
And you're right, hair loss can be something I've had temporary. I've dealt with some hair loss throughout my life, like way before HCG too. So
Right.
it didn't freak me out. I knew it would grow back, but and actually I'm taking biotin. You probably mentioned that. I don't know in your ebook or something, but
yeah, I do mention that in my ebook.
Yeah, I actually sometimes you know it's funny. Sometimes I've taken I'm very into natural remedies and stuff, but sometimes when something seems really simple and your problem seems really difficult, you tend to think, well, I tend to think like, oh, I don't think that could really make it that much of a difference, and so I don't bother, you know. And then recently I started taking biotin like a couple months ago, or maybe even a month, and I am amazed. Like I have a bunch of little hairs like growing in around my hairline. I'm not joking. I mean, it's really thickening my hair.
Yeah.
So
It's the other thing that's kind of sounds weird that I use for hair loss because I was after my first round I was losing hair, and the other thing you sometimes lose hair anyway with thyroid problems.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, but I someone told me to get MSM powder and put it in a little spray bottle, like a fourth a teaspoon of MSM powder, and then just a little spray bottle from Walmart, and spray that on your body. And it actually does work.
Cool.
I started doing that, and within a week, my hair loss stopped. And so now I do that every single round. When I get out of the shower, I dry off and then spray that on and let it air dry, and no more hair loss.
Interesting. So, that is so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. You actually, there was one other thing I wanted to ask you too, because since you have lost so much weight, sometimes it can be an issue or just, you know, your feedback on it. A lot of women ask me about excess skin. Like, do you have excess skin? If so, like, how do you deal with it? Or what's been your experience?
My skin is actually pretty good for the amount of weight that I lost. I did dry skin brushing all throughout, and the MSM powder supposedly helps with loose skin too. I don't know if it was really helping. I don't know which really helped the most, but I did dry skin brushing, and I have a link to a dry skin brush on my site too.
Cool. Yeah.
So that if somebody wanted to get the brush that they could, but that's what I did throughout. And I do have a little bit, it's funny, I joke with my family, as long as I'm standing up straight, I'm fine. You can't tell I have loose skin. It's if I bend over, then my stomach is a little squishy, and my arms, you can see it's a little squishy. So if I drop anything, I ask my kids, could you pick that up for me? So, but really, I think the dry skin brushing was the key for me. I've seen other people who lost less than me who had like a lot of loose skin, and I really don't. It's really pretty good, and it will tighten up. I know over time, especially if you dry skin brush, over time that will tighten up.
Oh, cool.
So,
well, that's good. Yeah, and I kind of felt like I kind of think it might be a little bit genetic too, possibly. Because I interviewed, I interviewed Lori. I don't know if you remember her, but she lost like 80 pounds or 100 pounds, and she didn't do any dry skin brushing, and she doesn't have like almost any loose skin. Like she looks great. Like she's all buff looking and she doesn't work out, you know, and it's like, wow. And then like you said, other women, they don't even lose that much, you know, but they do have a lot. So I kind of think it's partially genetic, but I love the idea that there are at least some things you can do to help it. And I have the same thing. If I lean over, I have a little bit of little excess skin on my belly, but you know, honestly, I don't care. Like I'd rather be 50 pounds less. I'm much happier. I mean, you can't have everything sometimes. So it's like, do you want 100 pounds of fat or do you want a little excess skin? So that's cool. Oh, good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on here today.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on. Let me see. Can I hear you? Hold on.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
you're fine. You know what? It's my speaker. Anytime like there's no sound coming out for like a minute, it like shuts off. So
Oh no.
it's fine. I'll just cut that part out. It's fine. That's great. All right, let me see where I'm at. Okay, so we talked about that. Oh, and we talked about that. Oh, and we talked about that. Oh,